You're listening to Landlord Tenant World. Well, hi, everybody. It's a landlord tenant world out there, and welcome to it. I'm your host, Doug Schimel with Hapco Philadelphia, and this is the podcast that explores being in the best industry ever, being a rental and investment property owner. And this is a stat I mentioned in our last show, and it bears repeating. Half of Philadelphia residents are renters, which makes it the largest city of landlords and tenants in the country. And Hapco Philadelphia is the largest rental advocacy group in Philly and one of the largest in the United States. Coming up on today's show, she is a rental property owner. She's a developer. She is a realtor. She's an attorney and a landlord activist, and one of two brand new board members on Hapco Philadelphia's board of directors. Barbara Capozzi is going to be here in just a little bit. But up first, she has become one of the authorities for lead testing and compliance in Philadelphia when the city began rolling out its lead safe certificates and requiring them for all rental properties in 2019. Her company, Lead Safe Resources, took charge in helping rental property owners and their tenants get legal and safe. So a big landlord tenant world welcome to the owner of Lead Safe Resources, Risa Sadie. Risa, how are you?
Hi, Doug. Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, we've only talked to each other on the phone for the purposes of the Hapco digital newsletter, but nice to see the face with the name there. As you and I were talking for the digital newsletter interview, we realized that Philly has probably some of the oldest housing stock in the country, with many of the buildings built before lead paint was outlawed in 1978. When you got into the business, what were you seeing out there? I mean, did landlords have any idea this was coming, and were they just kind of clueless? What were you finding?
It was a whirlwind because landlords were not expecting this. And landlords have so many responsibilities as it is to keep
Yep.
their properties maintained that this was just the icing on the cake. And it was a lot of explanation. It was a lot of hearing
Yeah.
property owners complaining, and trying to just ease their minds that, it's going to get better. And, so it
And
was
did they believe
challenging.
you? Did they believe that it was going to get better? Because I'm assuming some of these properties were just rife with lead and in horrendous shape.
Oh, and they still are, and it's sad. It's a sad situation. I mean, 90% of the homes in Philadelphia were built before 1978. So that's a huge nut to crack.
Exactly.
I mean, I think now because it's the second round, because don't forget, in the beginning it was every 2 years.
Yep.
Now it's every 4 years. So now they're getting a little bit more acclimated with the process. We still get new calls all the time,
Yeah.
and you can easily get through this system without having your house or your property listed on Philadelphia's site as a
Exactly. And
renter.
I know when we talked for the newsletter interview a few months ago, lead law compliance is sort of at the bottom of every landlord's priority list.
Yep,
What
it
has
is.
it been? I know you gave a lot of reassurances that things are going to get better, but what were some of those questions you kept getting from these landlords? And in many cases, they're tenants too, because they were sort of freaking out if people were coming to do lead testing, maybe the landlord didn't communicate with them. So everybody was kind of in this state of heightened anxiety.
Yeah, and I mean, our clients are really the landlords and the landlords, the property owners, the tenants. If we get calls from tenants when they want to have their own relief that their kids don't have lead.
Yep.
Otherwise our clients are the the owners of the properties, and they have to do it because they will not be able they can't get their renter's license if they don't
Exactly.
have the testing. And that is how the system is starting to piece together,
Yeah.
because it wasn't like that before.
Well, and the landlords and the rental property owners have to realize, and some of them didn't, that if you don't have that certificate, you technically cannot collect rent, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. 150%.
And
And I mean, and I live in a condo, an apartment. I looked up just for giggles, and just to see what my property said, and my property doesn't even have a renter's license here.
oh
So
God,
you can get away with it. If I mean, I don't own it, but I'm renting it from somebody who never applied for renter's license.
and
So
that's kind of that wild card too. And that's one
yes,
of the things that Hapco
yes.
Philadelphia has been very big about is education, education, education. We've had many sessions with lead experts. You'll be coming in to do another one to talk about why it's so critical. I mean, how would you? Part of the issue and some of the complaints I heard was how the city rolled this whole thing out. They sort of did it gradually by zip codes around the city.
Yes,
Was their
yes.
rollout okay, or did that create a lot of the problems?
I mean, I think it's just made it more confusing, because of the zip codes, and they changed they kept changing it around, and so and it was challenging for us also because we had to be the leaders, but it changed so many times that it just made it a confusing process for these property owners.
Exactly. Well, I know the
I mean,
headline for the
it's all, it's all to be in the best interest of the children, and
that
that
was
can't
you read my
be
mind.
forgotten. That
Yep.
cannot be forgotten.
That's what
But
this is all about. And it's the two
exactly.
key things is health and safety of the kids if they're kids in those
Yep.
properties, and also from a dollars and cents standpoint, as we said in the headline of the digital article, lead testing compliance keeps rental owners from being sued, basically.
Right, right. And yeah, exactly. But it's a costly a lot of times it's a costly additive for these, real estate owners, and they're not happy about that.
Yeah,
So they feel like they're kind of being picked on for little things here and there, but if they don't get it done, then they can't rent their property out.
exactly. You had sent over some interesting questions, and a lot of these are the questions that you have gotten. We've got about a little less than 7 minutes here, so I want to kind of
Oh,
speed train
okay.
through a lot of these if I can. One of the questions you had mentioned was, does when you get these lead safe certificates, and this is what the city requires of all rental properties in Philadelphia since 2019, does the tenant need to sign the lead safe certificate on the property they're renting, or who has to sign that in order for it to be legal?
So, the owner of the property has to sign it. The tenant does not have to sign it, but it has to be included in the lease so that they
Exactly.
see the cut. But they do not. They used to have to sign it, but not anymore.
And I know you had said in our interview that these are the kind of things when you get changeovers in property managers, you should have certain things, multiple copies framed and posted and filed so
Yeah.
everybody knows where these things are in the office.
Yes, because and that's also due to the high turnover of property managers. They flip from, one huge property to
Yep.
another, and then nobody knows where it is or when it was filed and how many years it's out. And so yes,
And if you,
yes.
let's say you're legal, you have one, and then but you can't find it, or you don't have you only have one copy and it's missing, but you're legal. What do you have to do?
So there's a system with the city of Philadelphia called Eclipse. And if they originally registered it with the city, it will be on that system.
Yep.
If
Excellent.
they did not register it, well, then they might have to pay to just have it done just
Yeah.
for the sake of having it on the system.
Exactly. I want to ask you another question. You said you've run
Mhm.
across. Are there any fines for not filing the lead certification for a rental property,
So it's $2,000 a day
which is pretty
if
stout?
it's not yeah, if it's not filed on time, and you have a renter in the place, then and you can't evict them. You can't evict them if that's not all in place. You cannot. You're stuck.
Yeah.
So
Now, one question you said you get a lot of, and a lot of, even though hardwood floors have been big in renovated projects, what if the floors of the rental unit are carpeted? How do you test the floors? Because you're going in and swabbing all flat surfaces, windowsills, floors, areas where the children may be. What do you
correct.
do if it's carpeted?
We can still go right through the carpet. We have a different test for that, but we can do carpet, laminate, hardwood, all that. So,
That's
but
that.
don't forget, we're only doing, we're doing the bedrooms and we're doing a common area. So we try to
Yep.
find the areas that are not carpeted. Most of the time, the houses that we go in are laminate. I would
Yep.
say 80% of them are laminate.
And we've got about 4 minutes left. What
Okay.
kind of insurance or protection is out there for rental property owners for lead paint? I don't know if there's insurance along those lines that might help cover the cost of remediation. What is that?
Okay, so we found this was a little challenging of a find, but we found something that's called site pollution policy, and not very many companies do it. I found one called Zurich that will work with you and
Right.
customize it. But it's a pollution liability insurance basically, and so what it covers, it covers unexpected pollution exposures that may not be covered with your casualty
Interesting.
and your property. Yeah, it was very interesting because we've had clients asked us that. I mean, have asked us that question, and we couldn't find anything, but we came across this.
Well, because when oftentimes when governments pass these mandates for certain industries, they're called unfunded mandates, meaning there's no money that helps pay for, a landlord to pay a testing firm like yours, or to cover the remediation of repairing the flaking lead paint or repainting or sealing certain areas. I know one instance, one problem you said you guys and your inspectors have run into is if you get to a property and the tenant or renter doesn't let anybody in, what do you have to do to sort of prove that you tried and yet they wouldn't let you in?
So if a tenant refuses to let us in, then we need to go to the public health department. And then from there, if that doesn't work, we can provide a letter to their attorney, the real estate owner's attorney, and say, hey, listen, we tried to get in, nobody let us in, and then they have 24 hours to post it on the tenant's door.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of a process, but yeah, I like we have not had that problem in a long time because the tenants want to get this test done because
Yeah.
they most of them have kids and they want to feel that sense of that we're living in a safe environment.
And they're scared when they hear about lead and the landlord comes to them and says, hey, we've got to do this testing, like, oh my god, there's lead in here, I've got
Oh,
children.
150%. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now,
And
we've got about 2 minutes left. One of
okay,
the things we have talked about was proposed changes coming from the federal level. The Biden
right.
administration has proposed some changes. In layman's terms, very quickly, what are they, and how tough is that going to be for rental property owners to comply with?
So it's actually going to be really tough if they almost want to get it down to zero. And it is impossible to get these lead results down to zero. I mean,
Meaning
you
meaning
could
showing absolutely no lead present.
Exactly. And so you could, I mean, and you don't have a lot of control over what your tenants are doing. I mean, we have owners that are in New York and the tenants are in Philly and they have no idea what's going on in their homes. So as far as these levels they're trying to get it down to, I guess it's just a wait and see game, just like how they came out with this whole
Yep,
thing. I don't think they're realistic. I don't think that anything's going to pass if they try to get it down to zero, because it's just, you could go do a renovation, open a window, and all this dust and lead comes in. What do you,
exactly.
you know?
Or you could wear a, one of those yellow hazmat suits around your house all the time, because as you say, it would be impossible to get it down to a zero. Well, it's the whole lead testing compliance. It's an ongoing process for
Yes.
Philadelphia's rental owners. And you can reach Risa, people can reach you via email at leadsaferesources@gmail.com, leadsaferesources@gmail.com. Or you
Correct.
can call Risa. What's your number over there?
215, um, oh, sorry, I just had
I've
a
got it
brain
here,
freeze. No,
791
791 8400.
215 791
Yes.
8400. Well, owner of Lead Safe Resources, Risa Sadie, this has been wonderful. And this is a good kind of a quick primer for a lot of our rental property owners. Thank you so much for
And
being
can I
on
just give a
Hapco
shout out?
Philadelphia's Landlord Tenant World. You did wonderfully. Thank
Can
you
I
so
just give
much.
a shout out to you, because you are amazing and Hapco is
Oh,
amazing,
shucks.
and I love, like, looking at all the updates, and so anybody who's in real estate should be part of Hapco. So I just
Oh
wanted to give
God,
you a
there
plug
you
out
go. We got our plug in there. There we go.
there. I
We've
meant it though. I wasn't
Thank
just
you.
fluffing it.
And you've been
So,
a longtime member and associated and an advertiser, and we thank you so much.
and I
Risa,
thank
thank you
you.
so much, and
Thank you, Doug.
let it
Nice
keep us
talking
posted
to
on
you.
stuff our rental properties need to know about. Well,
Absolutely.
our next
All
guest
right.
on Landlord Tenant World is one of two new Hapco Philadelphia board members. She's a veteran rental property owner, realtor, developer, lawyer, rental industry activist. Her list and her resume just goes on and on and on. Please welcome our newest board of directors member, Barbara Capozzi. Barbara, how are you?
I'm fine. And I second what Risa said, because it's all about education and you're doing a great job of that. You seem to
Well,
know an awful lot about real estate, so you must be paying attention.
well, it's kind of like by osmosis.
Yeah.
We've had
Hang
Hapco
around.
Philadelphia has been a wonderful client for more than 5 years, and having been in the news media for 37 years, you learn so much about the other side of the equation, because so often the
Mhm.
news media we're responding to aggrieved tenants and
Right.
renters, and it's sort of neat to see these are all small independent
Right.
mom and pops who are just trying to make a living. They're not money grubbing greedy landlords that often are portrayed.
Portrayed. Right.
So congratulations on joining the Hapco Philadelphia Board of Directors.
Well, thank you.
It's exciting to have someone of your caliber on there, and with such a fresh perspective. And you come from a long line of realtors. I guess your father and your grandfather were in the business
Father,
too.
my grandfather, my father developed the neighborhood of Packer Park, and I'm still here 6 years later.
Yeah.
I'm the civic leader as well. So that's my connection to my dad, back to my dad, that I'm the civic leader in the neighborhood he started. But I also worked with John Westrom to develop
Yep.
330 units. And I have just built with my husband 14 more new construction units. If anybody wants high quality new construction, call me. Elevator, 2-car garage, etc.
Damn, elevators too. Hell,
In the
that's
safest,
wonderful.
cleanest neighborhood in the city, I must say.
Wow. So when you would sit around the dinner table with your father and your grandfather on what's happened, and you talk about, oh my God, the business is going to hell, or oh my God, the business is so much easier for you, Barbara, than it was for us.
Yeah, definitely
What
heard
has
that.
been happening to the industry as you've kind of carried on this third generation?
Well, what's been happening to the industry is, I'm glad you asked. And this is why Hapco is so important, because the industry has it's very diverse, it's wonderful, and so is Hapco. It's great. Our meetings are just fabulous. The general meetings
And you're going to be leaving straight from here
to go to the
to
chamber
a
lunch.
chamber luncheon
Right.
with Sherelle Parker.
Yes, yes, indeed. And just to not to change the subject, but I am very optimistic about Philadelphia. Sherelle is moderate. She's sensible. She's energetic. She means what she says, and you are not going to push her around. And it's wonderful. She has made some great appointments. The police commissioner is awesome, which
Yep.
is something that we all care about. The managing director, who actually runs all the city departments, is fabulous, terrific. And so on and so on. And there was an article in today's paper that she has a business background, and she is putting business friendly people on, which is
Yep.
important because that's the tax base.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Well, and it's you sort of had and Jim Kenney had his faults and had his
And good things
strengths.
too. Yeah.
But it was sort of kind of a neutral administration toward rental property owners. There were some council members who understood the struggles that the rental property community has been up against in terms of rules and regs and taxes and eviction moratorium and eviction diversion programs, all that sort of thing. You're going to be dealing with a lot of new or rookie council members too, who
13.
have little to no experience. What is
13
that?
out of
Is that a
17.
challenge, or is that fun? You can mold them. What happens?
No, that is a huge challenge. Again, Hapco will be at the table with all the other real estate groups, and we do have a way to connect us all, because just one group's not enough. So there's the apartment association, there's the Hapco, there's the builders association. I'm on that board. There's the development workshop, which is an excellent group of developers and real estate people. There's GPARC, Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors. I was the past president. I'm on two of their important committees. So we all together are working to educate council. Some of them cannot be helped. I'm sorry, they can't be helped.
Okay, they're hopeless.
There's some that this will be the best job they ever have in their life, which is great, but that's not the way it should be. But the difference between when my father and grandfather were in real estate and now is that the real estate industry is over regulated. The city, there's 30 bad players in Philadelphia. Well, the city does all these regulations against those bad players, but they're smart enough to avoid all these laws. It's the good guys like Hapco people that follow the regulations. So we're over regulated instead of them going after the bad guys.
Yeah, and one of the things, all of that overregulation, taxation, fees had already made it tough for the small independent mom and pops to kind of make it. Many had given up before the pandemic. When the pandemic hit and the eviction moratorium set in, and rental owners were owed tens of thousands of dollars that some of that emergency rental assistance just never covered, and they just had to eat it. A lot of them said, I'm done, I'm selling out. And as they leave the market, so does affordable housing.
Right. The NOAA, which is the naturally occurring affordable housing, is the best affordable housing in the city, not subsidized, just subsidized by the little landlords. And one thing that I would like to see Hapco's mission include is to get more respect for the little guys. And I think we will have a sympathetic ear with Sherelle. I want to make that case with her. These guys are out there, guys and girls are out there, very, very nice to their tenants. I mean, very, very nice to their tenants. These are not the bad guys. I testified on city council once and I said, if you want to go after the bad guys, Community Legal Services is right over there. I'm sure they have a list. L&I's right over there.
Absolutely.
I'm sure they have a list. Why don't we all get together and get those people out of business, and here 90% of your problems will disappear. We don't need all these regulations. But anyway.
There was
only they'd listen.
There was a letter to the editor written by a tenant advocate a couple of months ago. We sent in a reply, and as oftentimes happens with the Inquirer, if they get a reply from a rental organization, it's done as a sort of a point counterpoint, as opposed to rental advocates are dealing in these false stereotypes. We'd like to clear those up. We send in a response and crickets. So, that's one of the things. And unfortunately, the politicians tend to default to a lot of the tenant organizations, and many of them are very good and they're staffed by well-meaning people, and people do have bad experiences with rental owners, but that is the exception and not the rule.
Right. But do you see what the city's done over the years?
Yep.
And it's happened everywhere. They have transferred their responsibility to the most vulnerable citizens in the city. They've transferred that responsibility to private owners. That's not fair.
Yeah.
That is not fair. And we're willing to accept it, but come on, help us and at least respect us. When you go
Exactly.
into
What we were-
city council, some people there absolutely have disdain and disgust for owners. They think like we're all like I won't mention names, but like the big billionaires of real estate. And that's not the
like
case.
as was characterized in that editorial,
Yeah.
money grubbing corporate landlords.
Absolutely
That's
not.
a relatively corporate ownership is relatively
Relatively
small.
small.
It's independent, small
Right.
mom and pops.
Right.
And we talked about earlier about unfunded mandates, that all these things are issued from council in Harrisburg and sometimes from Washington. And it incurs cost on a rental property owner who is already burdened
Locked it,
and
right, and already
struggling.
locked in. And one of my pet peeves is that I'm happy that there's a lot of programs for home ownership, which I work with GPAR on. But there's
Yep.
Loop, there's the homestead exemption, there's paying your real estate taxes, which are moderate in Philadelphia. For the most part, you can pay them in installments. But if
Yeah.
you have a commercial property or an investment property, see that bill? You gotta be there with the whole thing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really not fair. If they want to be fair, to the, landlords versus homeowners. Now, listen, we'd love to see the homeownership increase in Philadelphia. And there's a lot of programs to do that. They're all very cumbersome, more cumbersome than they should be. But I applaud the city for trying, and hopefully we can, with the coalition of all the real estate groups, Hapco taking the lead, we can streamline some of that stuff.
That's
get out to our
the big
members.
hope, is that now that you've got a number of malleable or at least open-minded new
Hopefully.
council members, we're going to have Rue Landau on
good.
next month.
Good.
Another person who has expressed interest in hearing from us.
Oh, good.
And so that's something that has been a little unusual, and it kind of, what, really? You'd
Yes.
like to actually hear the perspective? And we've got a wonderful general counsel in Paul Cohen, who's maintained
The best.
wonderful
Oh
relations.
my God, he's
down
the
there.
best. If anybody ever needs a
phenomenal.
lawyer, terrific.
He's an advocate and a great representative.
And a gentleman.
I mentioned that you're one of the two new board members. What was it that kind of drew you to Hapco and say, I want to be a part of this, or I want to be
It's
on
not like I need another thing to do, but
well,
Vic Pinkney, who's a veteran of Hapco, begged. No, I won't say he begged, but he begged. And I said yes. But I have skills that I can lend, and I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Well, and it's the credibility, the credentials, the experience, the clout, the contacts, all of those things come to bear when you're in an industry like this, because if this industry doesn't advocate for itself, there are no other advocates out there. They're just not.
Not at all. And really, I do want to make another pitch for Hapco. If you go online, Hapco Philadelphia spelled out.com, you can join. You can find out about classes. There is so much to know. I mean, I have been doing this since I was a child, and every day I learned something new, and that's great. It's really, it's invigorating.
I love this. You do all my plugs for me. I don't have to do any of these. This is wonderful.
But it's true. Hapco is terrific.
When you go to the annual meeting, when you go to the education sessions, a members only perk is Ask the Attorney. You save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in legal fees talking to a nationally renowned real estate lawyer in Paul Cohen, who is in New Zealand now, but he's going to be back on our next show when Rue.
But listening, I'm sure.
Oh, exactly. But we've got about a little less than 2 minutes, Barb. What would you say are the top 3 issues facing rental property owners that need to be addressed or fixed, either in city council or in Harrisburg?
Well, we talked about the first 2 already: overregulation of the good guys, lack of special programs for investment property owners, like even a payment plan for your taxes, because our taxes have gone up. I mean, some of them actually make your eyes water. Thirdly, the difficulty of the eviction process. For people to think that there are no bad tenants, it's just so unrealistic. And
Yeah.
from the other point of view, why would a landlord who has a place filled, went through all the trouble of leasing, lead-based paint,
Yep.
et cetera, why would he want to get rid of somebody unless they were a problem to the unit, to their
No one
neighbor?
likes to go through eviction. It's
Nobody
a
wants to,
brutal,
but they have
costly
made it
process.
possible. And that,
Yeah.
and you know who knows that the most? The bad tenants. They
Oh,
know
yeah.
that the most, and that's
Yep.
a terrible thing. Now, there was just a bill proposed in city council, Jamie Gaudier, to train the eviction officers.
Right.
Should they be trained? Yes. If they got the training, if people got the training, assuming there was a training agency to do it, that is in that bill, they don't have to be eviction officers. They could go right to the FBI. I mean, it's so high.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous.
And
But
that, and there's been a lot of talk about, the fate of the landlord tenant office, the question of privatization.
And it
And
needs
then
to be
everybody
fixed
there
fast.
was talk about, it needs to go back to the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office has its own
problem.
host and history of
Yep.
problems, internal problems that they're dealing with. And I don't know that that's any better of a solution.
Right. But the point is, when we discussed this at GPAR, there was people saying, well, yes, the officer should be better trained. I said, stop, pull back. Ask yourself why that legislation reads that way.
Yep.
It's not to
Exactly.
get better officers. That's what it looks like, but it's really to stop or slow down even more all evictions. And some people do
Exactly.
have that mentality that there is no bad tenant. And sadly, that's not the
Exactly.
case.
And we tend to focus on the seriousness of providing affordable rental housing, but there are so many rewards. You've seen them over the years. They're
Absolutely.
wonderful relationships with your tenants and the people you sell homes to. I want to give a huge thanks to Hapco Philadelphia's newest board member, Barbara Capozzi. Thank you so much for being on the Landlord Tenant World. That is our time for this
thank you for what you
edition.
do.
A big thanks to our guest, Barbara Capozzi, and owner of Lead Safe Resources, Risa Sadie. And if you're a rental owner or an investment property owner, manager, or vendor, and you're not a member of Hapco Philadelphia, check out our website at hapcophiladelphia.com or go look up Hapco Philadelphia on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page and a member community for our members. And you can check out our upcoming education events, annual membership meeting, Ask the Attorney. You can save hundreds on legal fees. hapcophiladelphia.com. And we want your questions for future editions of our podcast. So post them on our Facebook page or just email them to me at Doug@focusmediaservices.com. Doug@focusmediaservices.com. For everybody here at Hapco Philadelphia, I'm Doug Schimel, reminding you that it is a landlord tenant world out there, and we're all living in it. See you next time. Thanks for listening to Landlord Tenant World. To learn more, visit Hapco Philadelphia at hapcophiladelphia.com. And we'll see you next time.